So the next thing that I wanna introduce, remember we've been dealing with the old covenant. I wanna now slowly get us to the new covenant. But I'm gonna give you a bit of background. I'm gonna start with the story of creation, and I'm gonna touch a bit on the tabernacle and the law that was given to Moses, and then ultimately I'll touch also on the journey, Jesus' journey to the cross. These things, they provide background to the new covenant. So I had to deal with them so that you get context with regards to where this new covenant comes from. So, starting off with the story of creation, you should know that Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us make man in our own image." Who was he talking to? He was talking to what remained of the Trinity. He was talking to the Son. He was talking to the Holy Spirit. They were all there when you were made. When you and I were made, the Trinity was involved. So, but the significant thing is that we were made in God's image. Everything else, it was spoken into existence. God would say, let there be light, and there was light. So with us it was different. We were made differently from the rest of creation. God formed us. God formed us. He didn't say let there be humans. No. With us, his hands were involved in us existing. So we are quite unique in that sense. And then not only did he form us, he embedded himself in us. This happened when he breathed into the nostrils. And you can go to Genesis 1:26, and I'm quite sure that it's a story that you've read before. That's why I do not go much deeper into it. So I just need you to understand that you are God-like. You were made in God's image. And God exists as like I said, a Trinity. He's God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We are somewhat like that. We exist in three also. There's the flesh, what you see before you right now. There's the soul, and then there's the spirit. The soul has to do with your emotions, your will, and your mind. And then the third element to you is the element that was introduced to you when God breathed into us. And that's the spirit. That's the God element within you. It's embedded deep within us. I always refer to it as our spirit being. So you are a triune. God exists in three also. God is the Godhead or the Trinity. So why am I going through the story of creation? You need to understand that you are so much like God to such an extent that when he made you, he had to decide whether he makes you to be like him or not. And with regards to us having willpower, deciding whether or not we are doing something or not, it was quite risky because this would be the one thing that would actually create a wedge between humans and God. And what I mean by that, God had an option to just leave us without willpower, because we would do exactly as He wants us to do. But we wouldn't be godlike if we didn't have willpower. So He gave us willpower so that we are exactly like Him. We are godlike. And it was risky because this would be the one thing that would lead us to sin. And we know what happened in the garden. Adam and Eve were told not to eat from that fruit in the middle of the garden. The serpent came. That serpent induced Eve to eat from that tree. And then ultimately also Adam ate from that tree. And all of a sudden, after eating from the tree, they realized that they were naked. And them realizing that they were naked, what did they do? They took leaves to hide the state of nakedness. While they're hiding there, God arrives. He calls them. Where are you? Because God would come to the garden to talk to them. So God always wanted fellowship with us. He would come to the garden to talk to Adam and Eve. He always wanted fellowship with us. But He wanted us to follow His commands. We had to follow the rules. Adam and Eve were not supposed to eat from the tree. And soon after they ate from the tree, they realized that they were naked. And then they used these leaves to hide themselves. And God came and asked them, where are you? And then God realized that they had actually had that fruit from the tree, because they said they were naked. How do you know that you are naked? But now God, it goes without saying that He was angry. You need to realize that God, man's solution to sin, that state of nakedness, was leaves. But what did God do? God slaughtered 2 animals. God killed 2 animals, and the skin of those 2 animals, He used it to cover Adam and Eve. So man's solution to sin was leaves, while God's solution was blood. Blood had to be shed. And again, I'm emphasizing this point of blood. Blood is important. Blood had to be shed. And I sense that you understand this element. It's quite important because I'm gonna link it towards the end. So afterwards, after Adam and Eve had committed sin, they were banished from the garden. So that relationship that man and God used to have, it no longer existed. It was broken. So the next element that I want to deal with is the law. The law I'm referring to, the law that God gave to Moses and to the Israelites that they had to follow. And remember, it was given in the form of those tablets. And the law, you may ask, why is it there? The law is there to govern the relationship between man and God. And the second element to it, it's there to govern the relationship between man and his fellow man. So that's why the law is there. And by the law, you might ask, what is the law? The law is actually those commandments. And you will also realize that these commandments, there's a set that governs the relationship that you have with your fellow man, and there's a set of these commandments that govern the relationship that you have with God. So in Matthew 22, verse 36 to 40, I've got it here. A disciple asks Jesus, he says, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment." And then it further says in 39, and the second like it, love your neighbor as you love yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on to these two commandments. So just to show you that these commandments, they govern the relationship between man and God and the relationship between man and his fellow man. The ones that govern the relationship between man and God is these ones. You shall have no other gods before me. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. You shall not take the name of the Lord in vain. So those are the ones that govern the relationship between man and God. And the ones that govern the relationship between man and man is these ones. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not kill. You shall not steal. You shall not covet. You will honor your mother and father. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So that's the law. That's the law. The next important element that I want to take you through, it's the tabernacle. I've spoken about this in my previous in the previous preach. It's available. You can search it. But for the purposes of this message, let me go through it again. The tabernacle is very important. Why is it important? Maybe let me give you the background of the tabernacle. The tabernacle is this holy temple, and it's mobile. You can take it from place to place. It was God commanded Moses to build him a tabernacle, and you can find this in Exodus 25 verse 8. God commands Moses to build him a tabernacle. It says, "Build me a sanctuary and I will dwell among you." Again, it shows that God has always wanted fellowship with us. So this tabernacle, God was very specific in terms of how it had to be built. The specifications were quite detailed. Its dimensions were very detailed. The contents, what had to be placed where. God was very, very specific in terms of how it had to be built. I kept on asking myself, why was God so specific in terms of how this tabernacle had to be constructed, up until the Holy Spirit revealed all of this to me. So let me let you in on it. God is very particular. God is a very particular individual. And he's just like you, actually. Think about it. If, for instance, you go to a foreign place, a place that you don't typically spend a lot of time in, like for instance, you go to a hotel, it's going to be difficult for you to even fall asleep in that hotel. You're going to be, some people have heard that they can't even sleep in foreign places. And I've heard also there are people that actually, when they travel, they take sound bites of the ambient noise in their home. They make a recording of that, and then they play that ambient sound in their sleep, so that they can fall asleep. A baby, your baby, for instance, if he or she is in a foreign environment, in an environment that is outside her home, it's going to be a mission for him or her to fall asleep. You know very well. Those of you that have children, you'll be aware of this. So, again, you are God-like. So, God is exactly like that. He needed Moses to build him this tabernacle because it was actually a replica. This tabernacle was a replica of the throne room in heaven. That's why God was so specific in terms of how it had to be built, the contents, the material. God was very specific. I kept on asking myself, why is he so specific in terms of the dimensions? Why are the sizes supposed to be as he wants them to be? But it was so revealed to me that it's actually a replica. This tabernacle was a replica of the throne room in heaven. This tabernacle was built so that God's presence would dwell in this place. This place was referred to, there was a place within this tabernacle, it was referred to as the holies of holies. This was where the pure presence of the Lord would dwell. And this tabernacle was divided into different sections. There was the holy place, and there was a place where they would perform these sacrifices and so on. And remember that whenever these Israelites would sin, they would have to present an offering before the priest, and the priest would perform this sacrifice. Again, blood has to be shed. The priest would perform a sacrifice on behalf of the Israelites. And make a note that the only person that was allowed in this tabernacle was the priest. No one else was allowed in this holy tabernacle. And this room that I made reference of, the holies of holies, the priest was only allowed in that room just once a year. This is where the presence of the Lord was dwelling. So you need to understand that God hates sin, and God needs a sacrifice so that that sin can be forgiven. Blood has to be shed. Right. I think that element, you understand it quite well. So we're going to move, we're going to continue with our background to the story of Jesus Christ, the Christ that died for us. So you need to remember, friends, that Jesus left his throne of endless glory. He came down here on earth. He was born of a human being, just like me and you are born. That's why he's referred to in the Bible at times as the Son of Man. It's because he was born of a man, just like me and you. So he moved from, he left his throne. He came down here, was born, just like me and you are born. But also the reason that he came, as much as he knew he was going to suffer, he was going to be sold out, he was going to ultimately be tortured and ultimately be killed. He saw that him being killed, there's more to it than that. He saw us on the other side of him being killed, that we would be saved. So you need to realize, and you need to now link this. Christ is a sacrifice. Blood had to be shed so that we are forgiven. So I'll come back to that point. I just want to take you through to some of the I want to take you to Jesus, through Jesus' journey. What did Jesus do? At a certain age, he started spreading the word. The other thing that he did was healing the sick. And he would deliver tormented people. And wherever he went, there were signs and wonders. But you need to remember, Jesus did say that you will do all these things even more. So, all these works that Jesus did, you will do them. When you are ready, you will do them. You will do all these signs and wonders. So, and you need to remember that Christ walked his journey as a human being. He didn't walk his journey as God. So all the things that Jesus did, you and I can do them, like I said. And there was a point when Jesus was in the desert. At this point, the devil tried to actually get him to do certain things. One of them was that he said to him, turn this bread, turn these rocks into bread, so that you can eat. You are hungry. Jesus said no, and the next thing the devil said, why don't you jump? They were at this high place, and the devil said, why don't you jump? The angels of the Lord are going to come and grab you. They're going to save you. Again, he said no. And then the devil promised him all the riches of the world if Jesus bows down to the devil. Again, Jesus said no. You need to realize that this was the devil's way of trying to get Jesus to operate as God. So Jesus knew that if he had don't get me wrong, he had the ability to do all of that, but he didn't want to do them because it would mean that the path that we would need to walk would be impossible, because we are not God, we are humans. So I just needed you to understand what was happening there. And then fast forward to the Last Supper. We know what happened. They had Holy Communion. This is the night before Jesus was crucified. They had Holy Communion. But in Luke chapter 22, verse 20, Jesus says, this is my blood. This is my blood of the new covenant. You'll understand what he meant by that as we continue. But you need to understand that Jesus is a type of sacrifice. He's an untainted lamb. Those animals that used to be sacrificed in the tabernacle, you wouldn't just bring any animal to be sacrificed. There was a specific animal that was prescribed for each sin. And if it was a sheep, you wouldn't just bring any sheep. That sheep need to be untainted. That sheep needed to be without blemishes. So also Jesus is untainted. Jesus is pure. So you need to remember that as we continue. And fast forward to now him hanging on this cross. Before he died, there were a number of signs and wonders that happened. One of them was darkness. There was an earthquake. The dead were even raised from their tombs. The other one that is quite significant, particularly for the message today, is that the veil of the temple got torn in two. So I mentioned earlier in the tabernacle that there was a room that was referred to as the holies of holies, and this was where the presence of the Lord was dwelling. So the room referred to as the holy, the holy place, and the other room referred to as the holies of holies. They were separated by a curtain. They were separated by a veil. So this veil getting torn in half is quite significant, because it means that that separation, that room, through Jesus, you have access to it.